And let's talk about confirmatory bias. You know what that is?
Well, you were asking me the other day about the cognitive bias think tank, and we talked about how, as a part of my work in patient safety. No.
This is Doctor.
I would like to be able
Hold on, Doctor. Please listen to the question and answer the question. Go ahead.
This is confirmatory bias, sir, not a think tank talking about safety of anybody, okay? Confirmatory bias. Have you heard of that term?
I have.
And what does it mean?
Well, if you're talking about the work in diagnosis in medicine, as I was getting at before, it refers to the idea that an individual has an idea as to what they're aiming for, and they gather information that accedes to that, and that brings that point together.
Okay. So would you agree with me, sir, that when you are retained in your practice, working whether it's for Dietz or somebody else, and you are engaged by a prosecutor, such as the Plymouth County DA's office, is it fair to say that you go into your work and your evaluation, and I hesitate to use the word investigation, but you have a confirmatory bias? You're hoping that you're going to be able to help them out, right?
No.
No. Okay. So you had read all this material, you had spoken with the prosecutors, and I imagine you had done a team back with Kirk Heilbrunn, right?
A what?
You talked to Kirk Heilbrunn about the fact that you guys were going to go in and evaluate Lindsay, right?
We had worked with the prosecutors, and I believe them with you.
No, you didn't. Excuse me. You didn't work with me. What do you mean? You didn't work with me.
I imagine there was interactions in terms of setting up the dates on which this would occur.
I had nothing to do with it. My office manager, Laura Mather, would have done that. I had nothing to do with it, sir.
Yeah, okay, next question.
So when you went out there on the 2 days that you went out, forget the middle day, because that's when Kurt was by himself. When you went out there, the two of you met in the parking lot or the lobby, one or the other, correct?
Yes.
Yes?
I said yes.
And the purpose was to go interview her, right?
Ms. Clancy, yes.
So you guys go down the hallway, you go in the elevator, you go upstairs to the locked wards, they have to open the door, they have orderlies and people that escort you. Is that right?
Yes.
You have to sign in, you have to have ID because it's a locked ward, right?
Effectively, yes.
Effectively. And the two of you, you and Kirk, go into a room where she's sitting in her wheelchair by herself so that you two of you can interview her. Is that correct?
Yes.
For how many hours did you interview her the first time?
First day, it was roughly ended up being about, I think, 4 or 5 hours. And
have in mind, sir, as counsel has already elicited, she's incontinent. She has issues because of being paralyzed and had to have a break, didn't she?
She did not ask for a break.
Oh, she was able to power through the 4 hours?
I don't know if that's the appropriate way to frame it. We took a break. During the interview, we discussed the schedule that she has for catheterization, if that's your question.
So you and Kirk Heilbrunn sat down and you questioned Lindsay, the both of you together or one at a time, or how'd that work out?
One would ask questions, and if another one had additional questions to ask about that particular topic, then the other would ask.
And she was, fair to say, she was pretty cooperative with you guys, right?
Yes.
She was polite, she was affable, right?
Yes.
She answered your questions, right?
Yes.
And then when you concluded that first day, then the next day, Kurt Heilbrunn went on his own to Tewksbury and had another multi-hour interrogation, questioning, or whatever of Lindsay, right?
He was there for a second day for psychological testing.
So you're aware of the fact that he was there for psychological testing, right?
Yes.
Now, a psychiatrist doesn't do psychological testing. The psychologist does, right?
Typically, that's true.
And there are a number of tests that are administered to people when they are being evaluated for purposes of a criminal case such as this, right?
There is a number of different tests that test different aspects of an individual's psychiatric or psychologic or cognitive functioning.
Right. Like, for example, you want to determine, I would imagine, whether or not they're lying or exaggerating or minimizing their symptoms, right?
That's always an interest, yes.
And it's of interest because if a person is, in fact, masking or lying about their mind, trying to fake out an evaluating forensic psychiatrist or psychologist, when you say that's of interest, that's something that can be a test result that a jury could look at, right?
Well, I'm not sure if there's a test that specifically states a person is lying.
No. You ever heard of the MMPI?
I have.
Okay. You ever heard of the K scale?
Yes.
What is that?
Well, the K scale is among the internal validity scales of the MMPI. The MMPI is an assessment of the individual's personality.
Okay. So let's focus on the K scale, sir. When you say that it's a, let me ask you again, what is your understanding of what the K scale is seeking to find out?
I answer this in the context of the purpose of the MMPI and what the MMPI is designed.
What are you smiling for? This is not funny, sir.
Sustained. Next
Well,
question.
you know,
Next question.
MMPI, K scale, focus. What does it mean, sir?
So the MMPI is an assessment of personality, and it is a set of questions that the individual responds to provide the test and to provide the user of the test to understand what is their personality like. The K scale is a set of questions embedded in the MMPI that are designed to see whether or not the individual is exaggerating in their responses, generally speaking.
Okay. Or lying, right? They call the K scale the lie scale, right?
Well, if you're simply referring to your own personality style, the issue is whether or not the answers are reliable or valid. It's not a matter of assessing if the person is lying on the MMPI.
Does the MMPI assess to any degree whether or not a person is lying, in your opinion?
No.
No? So let's stay with Dr. Mack's opinion on the K scale. What would that do? It would determine if somebody is not being truthful about their symptoms or they're exaggerating their symptoms?
Well, the MMPI assesses the individual's personality and their thoughts about themselves. So the question is how to get an accurate reading of the person's personality. If it is the case that they are having a deviation on the K scale, then you might not utilize the MMPI as a whole. But the MMPI is not designed, in a sense, as a lie detector.
So what does that mean, sir, when you say if there's a manipulation of the K scale? What does that mean?
I don't think I used the word manipulation.
What word did you use?
I may have said deviation.
Okay. So if there's a deviation on the K scale, according to you, what does that mean?
It may come to a threshold that the MMPI is not usable, and
because
the users cannot gather information about the individual's personality as a result.
Because they're lying, and it's not a reliable test, right? That's the ultimate consideration, right?
Right. So it's not saying that the person is lying. It's saying that the test is not reliable.
Because the person who's the subject of the test is not being, let's say, forthright. Is that fair?
I don't know that it's always necessarily a conscious act. An individual, it simply reflects the tendency the individual has when answering the questions that are on that subpart of the test.
Okay, so if somebody has been indicted by the Plymouth County District Attorney's Office for triple murder, and you are working for the DA, evaluating whether or not they are suffering from a mental disease or defect, would you agree with me, sir, that there may be a tendency for somebody to exaggerate their symptoms to try to paint a positive picture of themselves?
Overrule.
Not necessarily.
Well, how about a little bit necessarily?
I don't know that there's a relationship.
Okay. So you are aware, regardless, that when Lindsay took the test for Dr. Kirk Heilbrunn, that there was no indication whatsoever of any malingering, exaggeration, or anything along those lines in that test. Would you agree with that?
If you're talking about the MMPI, correct.
That's what we've been talking about. I don't know. We're looking at each other.
I wasn't sure if he was going to answer, but why don't you ask the next
Yeah, okay. So you, tell me again what your answer was, sir?
That effectively that's what the testing elicited, that her case scale effectively, it was a valid test.
Okay. Now, you, in your review of all of the records, Tufts, Gelada, McLean, you knew that one of the health care providers, which would be Gelada, was focusing on the possibility that Lindsay could have been suffering from bipolar 2. Is that right?
I'm aware that that was on her mind, that was something she was concerned about, yes.
And bipolar 2 is quite common, is it not, sir, as a precursor of a person who is suffering from postpartum depression or postpartum psychosis, right?
I don't understand your question.
Okay, well, how about, is it appropriate in Dr. Mack's opinion to give a person suffering from bipolar 2 or bipolar 1 an SSRI?
An individual, there is a need in one's practice, traditionally at least, that if an individual might be suffering from bipolar 1 or bipolar 2, to avoid using SSRI medications. However, that has been reduced in terms of our worry about that over time, but that was maybe 20 years ago, 15 years ago, something that psychiatrists were more concerned about, but the concern has lessened over time.
It has. So in your opinion, sir, it's okay to give a woman who is coming to you for help, who's been diagnosed with a bipolar 2, it's okay to give her the SSRI, in your opinion. Is that what you're telling this jury?
That's not what I said.
Oh, okay. Tell me what you said.
I said the concern about the relationship between SSRIs and mania or bipolar disorder has lessened, but that doesn't necessarily mean that people's practices have changed.